In this lesson, we'll set up controls for the neck, head, and upper and lower jaws. So now that we have finished weighting the eyebrows, this would be a good time to go ahead and save out your weights. You can head over to Advanced Parameters, and you can go ahead and choose Save. Add that to whatever folder you would like, perhaps the Import folder or Export. Then we can name this face_weights. So if anything gets thrown off, we can always refer back to this file. Alright, great. So it's time to work on our control objects now. Let's go ahead and get started with the neck and head controls. We'll head over to our import option, and let's go ahead and grab a box shape. Now remember, we built these early on, so we can save a lot of time. Just built up this repository. Go ahead and now choose OK. Now if we were to go ahead and deselect and press the Z key to take a look at all objects in the scene, you can see how itty-bitty our rig is compared to this shape. So we want to make sure we go ahead and take the control object here and start to reshape it definitely. Let's go ahead and first translate it down. Great, and then we can go ahead and move to our vertex of object level. Start scaling in the shape, making sure our pivot is set to object center. Alright, I'll press the Z key to zoom on in. Great, so we can go ahead and bring this down a bit more. Once we've managed to do that, let's go ahead and enable thickness. So underneath our rendering rollout, go ahead and turn that on. You can see that needs to be changed because that's way too much. Let's go ahead and reset the X-form on this object. That's much better. We'll make sure to collapse it as well using the first choice, modifier stack result. Alright, now what we can do is quick align this over to the neck. So we'll press Shift A, and we'll click on the neck bone. Alright, wonderful. If you'd like, you can go ahead and bring down the thickness a bit more. I think we can. I'll also work on recoloring this object now. We'll clone our head control from this, so we might as well go ahead and take care of the recoloring and making sure it's stored in a controls layer. So we use that same shade of yellow we've used before. We'll head over to Tools, Manage Layers. Here we have a controls layer. I'll now go ahead and choose Add. Alright, great. So now we can start to reshape this. Let's go back to our vertex of object level, and we'll start to scale this down. And we can have it wrap around the neck. So let's grab our rotate tool, and we'll go ahead and reorient it so it follows the same angle the neck does. And we can now go ahead and grab, let's say, our move tool, grab the points at the top, and we can go ahead and start to kind of bring these up. Alright, great. We'll go ahead and grab the lower points and do the same. Just kind of pull these up a bit. And I think that looks good. Alright, great. Let's go ahead and take care of our head control. So again, we'll just go ahead and clone this object. Control V, make this a copy, we'll choose OK. We can go to Manage Layers, and we'll go ahead and hide our model. Let's go ahead and press Shift A. We'll go ahead and align this over to our head bone. Alright, great. So from here, we'll go ahead and show the head again. Let's go back to our vertex of object level. Let's start to bring up the size on this. I'm going to bring this up a bit. Alright, and then from here we'll go ahead and grab our points at the lower front. We'll go ahead and bring these down around the chin. The points at the top, we can go ahead and drag them up. So we're just fine-tuning the shape. Shouldn't spend too long, but there's no reason why we can't make our controls look a bit more interesting. As long as we have the time to, of course. And we have plenty of time, don't we? Alright, let's go ahead and grab the 2 points again that we've tweaked at the lower front, and we'll go ahead and scale these in. Just kind of taper the shape. That looks good. We can do the same thing for the back as well if we'd like. Alright, I think that looks great. Alright, so we have our neck and head controls. They do need to be renamed, so let's take care of that. For the neck, that will be anim neck 01. All right, we'll go ahead and copy that and use that to rename the head control. All right, wonderful. So from here, let's go ahead and link this control to our neck control. Beautiful. Once we've managed to do that, we can go ahead and grab both controls. We'll Alt-right click and use Freeze Transform to go ahead and clean up their transforms. All right, so the next step then would be to go ahead and set up our controls for the upper and lower jaws. And what we could do is work with, let's say, our square curves. So we'll head over to Import, and we'll go ahead and find the square shape. There it is. All right, so after importing that in, again, we'll deselect and press the Z key. That'll give us an idea of how far the control is from the control rig. So you can see it's pretty high up. We'll just want to translate this down a bit. We'll go ahead and bring down its size. We'll grab our points and start to scale those in. Now we can press the Z key to zoom in a bit more. Let's go ahead and scale this in some more. This would be a good time to reset the X form once we've closed in that shape a bit. Let's head over to Reset X form. And we'll go ahead and collapse this down. All right, great. You can see the pivot is just slightly off. No worries. We'll go to our hierarchy panel and choose Center Object 2 once we have turned on Affect Pivot Only. All right, great. So now it's just a matter of bringing this back to the rig. Let's say we go ahead and rotate it first. We'll grab our Rotate tool. We'll press the A key so we can use Angle Snap. We'll go ahead and rotate this about 90 degrees so it projects towards the face. Now we can go ahead and start to translate this over. Great. Go ahead and move this forward. And just to make sure that this is aligned properly, let's go ahead and press Shift A and quick align it to the nub of the upper jaw. So now it's centered. All right, so now what we need to do is go ahead and make sure that it will pivot from the right point. So we'd want to use Affect Pivot Only, and then we can go ahead and adjust its shape so it's easier to select. All right, so we'll take care of the pivot now. What we'll do is go ahead and hide our model. With it still selected, we'll go ahead and choose Affect Pivot Only. We'll press Shift A, and we'll quick align to the upper jaw's root. All right, now what we could do is go to our Modify panel, and in our Vertex Subobject level, we'll go ahead and start to just pull up the shape. Let's go ahead and bring the character back. And we can start to resize this. I'll grab the Scale tool, and we'll go ahead and bring this in the Z-axis and then the X-axis. All right, that looks good. We need to think about our brow controls and make sure that all of our controls will be easy to select, so be very careful about that. For that reason, I brought up this shape a bit higher. All right, great. Let's go ahead and clone this object. Make that a copy. All right, wonderful. If we were to go ahead and hide the model, we know that the pivot point is the same. So all we really need to do here is bring the shape down. We don't have to adjust the pivot point of this control. All right, so we'll go ahead and grab our Vertex Subobject level, and we'll start to bring this down closer to the chin. Feel free to bring back the character just to make sure that this looks nice after we've managed to tweak the shape. So we might go ahead and scale this in a bit more. All right, that looks pretty cool. I might go ahead and translate it up. Not too concerned if it intersects the bone object, because eventually we'll want to hide our bone object. So we just want to make sure that this looks nice. I think it does. All right, let's go ahead and work on renaming these controls. So that's going to be Enum Lower Jaw 01. We'll go ahead and copy that name and use that to rename the upper jaw control. All right, wonderful. Now, we know that these need to be linked to our head control, so let's go ahead and take care of that. With them still selected, we'll Alt-right-click and freeze their transforms. All right, great. If we were to go to our controls layer, you can see they're already stored, so that will save us some time. So what do we need to do next? Well, now we need to go ahead and tie down the neck, the head, and the upper and lower jaws. And we can actually do that right now because it doesn't take much time. We've already done this process. So let's go ahead and finish up by doing just that. We'll go ahead and hide our model. Let's go in and create a point helper. We'll now use Alt-A to align this to our neck. Alright, so from here, once we've made sure that position and orientation are all checked, we'll now go ahead and choose OK. We'll go to our Modify panel and we'll start to bring up the size on this. Maybe to about a value of 3, I think that would work out well. Let's go ahead and rename this to PT-DRV Neck 01. And we can have this stored in our hidden layer. Alright, great. So once we've managed to do that, let's go ahead and clone it. Press Ctrl-V, make this a copy, and we'll rename this to PT-DRV Head 01. We'll use Alt-A to align to our head bone. Alright, great. Let's now go ahead and take care of the upper and lower jaws. So again, we'll go ahead and press Ctrl-V, make that a copy. We'll rename this to PT-DRV Upper Jaw 01. We might need to change the display on one of these. Let's go ahead and first align to the upper jaw with Alt-A. Alright, great. We'll go ahead and clone this object. Rename it to PT-DRV Lower Jaw 01. Again, we'll use Alt-A. It's time to align to the lower jaw. And let's switch this display. Instead of box, we use cross. Alright, sweet. So now it's time to do some constraining and some linking, and we're finished. So starting with the neck, we'll go ahead and grab the neck here, and we'll actually use a position and orientation constraint to make sure that we can drive the entire rig. Alright, so we'll go ahead and Alt-right click and grab our position constraint. If you haven't added it to your quad menu, remember, you could always go to Animation, Constraints, and grab it from here. And now we can go ahead and select the helper we'd like to constrain to. We'll go ahead and now Orientation Constrain. Great. We'll want to take our helper and link right here to our neck control. Beautiful stuff. And if we'd like to scale from this object as well, we can go ahead and take our neck bone and simply link over to our neck control. The neck control can act as our global control. All right, beautiful. So when we go ahead and grab the neck control as we start to rotate, okay, everything looks good as we start to move this. And then eventually we'll be able to resize the entire rig, simply scaling from here. All right, so everything's coming together very well. Let's go ahead and move on to the head control, and we'll just apply an orientation constraint. So with the head bone selected, we'll go ahead and grab the orientation constraint and tie that to our helper. We grab the helper and link to our head control. All right, great. So when we grab the head control as we start to rotate, things are looking really nice. Let's now go ahead and take care of the upper and lower jaws to finish up. So for the upper jaw, remember, we go ahead and grab that bone object. I might go to wireframe mode so we can make sure we tie this to the correct object. And we'll now go ahead and apply our orientation constraint, tie that to our helper. And the helper will be linked to the upper jaw control right up here. All right, great. So we just have one more. Let's go ahead and grab the lower jaw. It's orientation constraint. And now, let's go ahead and take that helper and link over to the control object. Now we've done a few steps here, so let's go ahead and test this out just to make sure everything works well. We'll go ahead and bring back our model. Press F3. We'll go ahead and grab our neck control. We should be able to scale our rig. We most certainly can. Let's see what happens when we take our upper jaw control as we start to move that. Take a look. Everything's looking very nice. Okay, when we grab our head control, it's driving the entire head. The character agrees. This is cool. Let's go ahead and select our lower jaw. Start to move that. Sweet. All right, so we've managed to rig everything we need. We can go ahead and check our layers to make sure everything's stored. And everything looks good. So that's going to be it for this lesson. In the next lesson, we're ready to work on our eye controls.